Hey everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller, and I very much welcome you to the very first iteration of League around the world, where Izento, Ashley Kang, and I will be discussing different topics that are relevant to the League community from our own different regional perspective. Now, let's introduce ourselves first. Ashley, you are the resident LCK professional.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do I have to introduce myself?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, of course.
Hey guys, so my name is Ashley Kang. So I mostly work around creating content that bridges the LCK scene and the English audience who wants to learn more about the Korean esports scene. So currently a freelancer who does various translation work as well as interview with the Korean players.
Right, awesome. And then we also have our NA resident, Izento. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing pretty good. I like the premise of the show. When I first heard about it, I was just like, oh, that's gonna be dope. So we're gonna get like a whole scope of how everything works, and like what different regions have like certain strengths or weaknesses, and how maybe that's going to play out whenever they battle each other on like an international stage, which is gonna be pretty cool because we got MSI coming up, right?
Exactly, and MSI is exactly the topic of today's first episode, since it's a perfect way to start this off. Now, you do say you're in a good mood now, but we'll see about that at the end of this episode. And of course, my name's Darius. I'm the EULCS journalist doing all the video interviews. I hang around at the EULCS every week doing interviews, talking with players, stalking with players now. And yeah, just do a whole bunch of EU.
It's gonna get
LCS
you in trouble
coverage.
if you stalk players. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad, so let's not get into that. That said, MSI is right around the corner. A very, very exciting event, given that it's pretty much the second most important tournament of the year. And it's usually a great way to speculate how strong certain regions are coming into Worlds eventually. Even though Summer Split is between, MSI does hold quite the it's a really important tournament. Of course, last year, Ronaldo got to give the winners, in this case SKT, their medals and stuff, really huge in Brazil. And this year it's going to be in Europe, so I'll be very excited about the French fans in Paris. Lots of things happening here. And we just want to give you, the viewer, an overview of the different strengths of our personal region, in case you are or you weren't able to watch any of the LCK matches or NALCS matches or EULCS matches, which of course you should have, but it's okay if you don't have the time to do that. We want to get you up to date, up to speed about the different teams, what to expect from them, and how to beat them at the end of the day, if that is even possible with Kingzone. We'll get into that in a second. But let's start it out with the European representative Fnatic, of course. They 3-0'd G2 in the EULCS finals, which was a really, really huge result, given that it was a complete swipe. And I mean, G2 honestly didn't hold a candle to them. Fnatic also finished first in the regular split and overall had a very, very good score, dominated it most of the time. And yeah, I'm just going to get into the strengths of Fnatic and what you guys can expect from that team. Now, right from the get-go, we need to talk about the one player that really stands out here, Reckless, of course. Reckless, I mean, the guy, I've seen people on Twitter, even like the analyst of Clutch Gaming, who has like no EU bias and stuff, right? He said that Reckless this year is making a case for himself to be the best Western player of all time. And I can only agree. This guy is absolutely insane right now, which is so surprising given that people thought he had peaked almost in like 2015, 2016, maybe even 17. But he's still putting in the work. And he completely ruffled Storm G2 in that series. He didn't die a single time in that finals match. And we
That's
also
pretty impressive.
One of his strongest picks, and that one that I very much want to see at MSI, because it's just basically a free win for Fnatic if they do get it, is the Tristana. He has an 89 KDA on Tristana. He died once.
I saw those banana games, dude. Like, whenever he got Tristana, I was just like, all right, when are they going to punish him? Like, I mean, the thing about Tristana is she's difficult to last hit under tower. So when you're getting pushed in, it's so difficult to last hit. Like, I mean, yeah, sure, I'm a scrub at the game, but it's pretty hard to last hit because, you know, all the explosive damage and stuff is affecting all the other minions.
Yeah.
So it affects like all the HP values and stuff. So it's just super impressive to see like how well he plays in lane with that specific pick. I think it's nuts.
And what, for example, what G2 tried to do is exactly that. They tried to punish the bot lane. They had this huge gank, and I believe it was in the second game, and they got a huge lead off of it. But again, Reckless was the one that didn't die. And even though the bot lane was behind at that point, they still managed to come back. And one of the most important things that need to be mentioned about Fnatic is that their team fighting is absolutely insane. Like, their coordination, even though they have a substitute, is through the roof, partially because of Reckless's insane positioning. But once you get the CC on, it's on, it's over.
Okay. So you mentioned the substitute. So I didn't get much information on why Soaz is actually out, right? Because I heard it was like a hand injury or something, but like in what relation? Did he like, you know, hurt his hand doing sports, or like what's the deal with that?
We didn't have any specific info on how you get a hand injury. I would assume that it's, you know, the typical esports kind of injury where it's just like your arteries or like your wrist. You know, like when you have it in a certain position
Arthritis,
all the time.
right?
Is that it? Is that it though?
Yeah, or carpal tunnel.
Carpal tunnel. I believe it's carpal. I would assume he had to undergo operation. Even though it's not 100% final whether he'll play, I would very much assume that Bwipo will be stepping in for Soaz. And we'll get to Bwipo in a second. That said, Reckless is absolutely insane, and you also can't ban him out. So what I would assume, we will have so many fantastic ADCs at MSI, you know, with the likes of Prey, with the likes of Doublelift, who's pretty okay, and then we have Reckless,
it's pretty good.
Potentially Uzi as well. The finals will be played today. Sadly, we can't really specifically talk about EGG or RNG yet, but potentially a tournament of the superstar ADCs. I can definitely see Reckless prevailing in a meta that is ADC centric. That said, though, Caps also needs to be mentioned because he's insane.
Oh man,
he is so hard to pressure. He's barely killable as well, and he has such a high kill potential. Like, if you make a mistake versus Caps, you are dead meat, mate.
So I saw a part of the Vitality series,
right?
And he was just shitting on Jizuke. Like it was pretty bad.
Who is a fantastic mid laner himself, by the way.
Jizuke is really good. Right. That's what I heard. Jizuke is like, he's a really good. Didn't he win Rookie of the Split?
He did get Rookie of the Split. Yeah, he was even contender for like MVP. That's how good he was. So yeah, pretty insane.
Man.
I think it was voted as the third best mid laner of the EULTS split, and of course, you know,
wow.
I'm throwing this out there, some instant banter, but you know, when you are the best European mid laner, you kind of are the best Western mid laner as well, because you know all the good mid laners in NA are basically European. So just throwing that out there.
Well, I mean, the competition is what it used to be anymore. So you know, like,
but you know, is Bjergsen even EU at this point?
Yeah, right. I mean,
is Bjergsen even EU at this point?
We like to think so. He's technically an NA resident and stuff. I mean,
at this point.
Yeah, I actually, you know, at last Rift Rivals in Berlin, I got to interview him, which was, of course, a great honor. And I asked him about this kind of stuff. And he's basically, like, he's just in the middle, you know. He likes the banter from both sides. He appreciates it, but he doesn't really side with anyone. He's just like, oh, yeah, that's cool, you know.
So he's pretty much saying that he's an A now, but I don't want to piss off like an UA journalist.
We'll see. He still goes to the Danish Waffle House in LA or whatever that is. So, you know, he's still got some Danish roots there. But more
you gotta
important,
get something going.
Exactly. And Danish pastries are amazing. Pulsar as well, of course. But we also want to talk about specifically the weaknesses of each team, because I think strengths are relatively easy to pinpoint, but weaknesses are what's really, really interesting to me always.
Yeah. How do you beat Fnatic?
How do you beat Fnatic? That is a good question. You definitely 100% need to win and pressure and dominate the early game. Because Fnatic, out of the last 15 games where they were ahead at 20 minutes, they won 14 of them. So that is a pretty good win rate. in pretty much all of their games except for the second one against G2, I believe they were ahead at 20 minutes. It's what they try to do, like get some just early little advantages here and there, like a kill from Caps there, or you know, a good gank, maybe a dragon and stuff, a Drake. And that's pretty much how they get ahead, or like an early turret, because that's super easy with Tristana, right?
So, well, all right. So, talking about Fnatic style, they've kind of had this style for quite a while. You know, even last in the summer split, they had the same style of just like, all right, let's go slow, let's not do anything crazy, let's wait for Reckless to scale, and then you know we'll make our move after that because we're one of the best team fighting teams
in the world,
the West.
Okay, I'll take in the West.
So I mean, it seems like they still have that same game plan when you know loading up into the game. And sure, I haven't seen all of their games. I've basically only seen the playoffs. But even still, that's what I noticed. But then again, that was a little bit distorted because they have that wild card in the mid lane, right? You know, he's the guy that sometimes he pops off, sometimes he doesn't, right? So
that's definitely a good point. That said, Caps over the past split specifically has gotten a lot more consistent. Barely ever did you see Caps fall behind in lane, and only when he really got hard pressured, you know, like level 2 gank from the enemy jungler, going Olaf, going ham and stuff like that. So and even in the G2 series, you know, Jankos and Perks try to pull off the same thing. Jankos and Perks both go all in on him, on his karma, and he still manages to survive. So I definitely think Caps in that area has also massively improved, because you are definitely right in the way that he was more of a coin flip player. Now he's just so consistently not dying. It's very impressive, and I think Fnatic also have broadened their senses in they are not just relying on late game team fights and stuff. Yes, they can, you know, they can put Caps on a Swain or a Karma and then just go, okay, well, we'll win the late game team fights and we're Gucci. But they can also probably put him on the likes of Zoe. He's really good on that. He's good on LeBlanc. I'm very excited to see that potentially pop up at MSI, because we're gonna play on 8.8, and you know LeBlanc is really crazy right now. So
that's right.
Definitely keep an eye out for that. So I do think they're a bit more versatile in that area, but if they do really get hammered in the early game, that's where it's going to be really difficult for Fnatic. Second point, you need to pressure Bwipo. Bwipo is the rookie, right? He's the new guy.
That's right.
Even though he didn't play badly whatsoever, he played really well in my opinion. He's basically only played tank so far.
I disagree, but
yeah,
we'll get to that. Okay,
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
He's only played tank so far, except for one game where he got to play Gangplank against Vitality, and he wasn't too impressive. So if you do pressure him to take the likes of, you know, Camille or Fiora or a carry top laner, I think he will have more of an opportunity to strike. That said, though, this is an important point. Bwipo was brought onto the team because he was basically a solo queue monster in terms of playing carry top laners. Whereas Soaz, you know, the dog champion master, he was the master of tanks. So Fnatic wanted to have like best of both worlds. So I definitely don't think he... say Bwipo plays the summer split, right? I can definitely see Bwipo playing Camille, Fiora. He was really known for his Jace and do really well in the ULCS. But at MSI, against like top tier top laners, against Impact, against, you know, all these.
So that's what I was noticing, is that basically what happened in the series versus G2 is that they dedicated a lot of draft resources to Bwipo. So they banned out the Camille, they banned out the Fiora, because they didn't want like this carry versus carry matchup or anything. Yep. And that might be, since you're saying that he does play carries actually, and he is a solo queue monster, it's to be expected that he's pretty proficient on those champions themselves, but that doesn't mean that the team is proficient in that regard. So, you know, I could see why you would want to spend the draft resources if you aren't, you know, used to that style playing as a team as Fnatic. And we all know that usually it's the reckless show when it comes towards the late game anyways. So it just looks like they're uncomfortable with doing that style just by their draft phase. And the point in which I disagree with why Bwipo, I don't think he played particularly well. I would say he played decent for what Fnatic was able to get around the map, regardless of his deficit, which is nice. So, maybe that's part of the plan or whatnot. But when a person dies solo, or not solo, but on the other side of the map, and yet the rest of the team takes an objective at the same time, I still don't see that as the most optimal play that you can do. The most optimal thing to do is to not die, obviously, and get the other objective, waste the opponent's time while doing that. And I just noticed he got caught out a lot. He was kind of out of position. He didn't respect vision or jungle pressure, and he just kind of didn't synergize with the rest of the team when they were doing something else on the other side of the map. So I see this kind of maybe disconnect in communication. He just isn't really aware of what the rest of his team is intending to do. And maybe that's him just not communicating enough with the rest of the squad, or vice versa. And also just him not knowing basic macro principles when it comes to professional play. So that's the major criticism that I have. But I mean, Fnatic, they did okay, even with that kind of a crutch. So it's a lot different from Impact, absorbing pressure and still handling himself. But I'll give it to him. So
I can see Darius tilting slowly.
No. I think yeah, please.
But another thing that I wanted to ask around the playstyle of the top, and it's related to how Izento is raising. Maybe Fnatic as a team itself isn't used to the top being the carry. What is the jungle focus of Fnatic? Because depending on the playstyle of the team, sometimes the jungler focuses more at the top or mid or the bottom, or counter jungling. So where would you place Fnatic in terms of the jungle presence? Aggressive, defensive?
It very much depends, honestly, on the draft and on the general game plan of Fnatic, I would say. That said, so Broxah used to be like a carry jungler as well, known for his Lee Sin, etc., known for his Elise, but right now we've pretty much only seen him on tank junglers. And usually, basically the moment that Bwipo was brought on, the focus kind of shifted towards a top heavy focus, because Fnatic before with SOAS, the guy just knows how to absorb pressure like no others. The same with Impact, pretty much. Like you can just put him on the Maokai, put him on the Dark Champions, and he'll just be fine 100% of the time. So they were able to then get some pressure mid lane specifically, and then objective control and bot lane as well. With Bwipo, we've seen a lot more top lane ganks, and also a lot more just overall pressure in that area between mid and top. And in general, I would say, though, Broxah really likes to gank, pretty much top lane and bot lane right now. Before, he also sometimes used to gank mid lane, but I feel like Caps, just as a player, has evolved so much that he's also able to absorb so much pressure that he's usually not in need of any help. And Broxah just gets to care about objectives a lot more as well, which is, I've also mentioned, they usually have very good objective control. Broxah also brings in a very good smite finger, a good trigger finger, winning a lot of smite fights. So that's something positive to say there. But about Bwipo, just real quick, I think calling him a crutch is a bit of a reach, but you're definitely right in the way that he's just simply right now not on the level of those insanely experienced, dedicated top laners.
So you remember when Bwipo made that statement about how well he's doing.
Which one? He's made like 5 at this point that were a bit difficult.
But, you know, he kind of compared himself to the same level as SOAS, you know, and saying that they had this intention of putting him in and whatnot.
Right, yeah.
And people viewed that as like a little bit of disrespect. Like, yo, you're going after a legend, you know, and not only that, but it's your teammate. Like,
yeah.
And after the performance that I saw from him in the G2 series, I was just like, you don't even hold a fucking candle to SOAS. Like,
yeah,
no
I mean,
way.
Definitely. I think that was definitely a reach. I can judge whether Fnatic is actually scrimming with like carry top laners and stuff. But yeah, it's difficult. Ashley?
No. So going back to the subject of how to beat Fnatic, if a team were to looking to do that, would you say that they would try to pressure Fnatic quite early game, especially around the top lane?
100%.
And possibly try to force a carry versus carry matchup?
Yep, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And also the last point that I wrote down was that Fnatic, when they did lose some of the games, they lost a game against Vitality in the series they had. They lost, of course, some games in general during the regular split. And the only consistent thing I could see there was that they were basically unable to play against split pushers. So when there's the likes of Camille, or when there's you know even a Zoe or like a Rise that can pretty much split push as well, they have a tough time dealing with that, which is exactly why, you know, in those series against G2 they ban out stuff like, you know, Camille and stuff. So this doesn't happen. The question is whether a team would be able to put Fnatic into that situation in the first place, because, you know, when you're in draft phase, right, Fnatic can just say, yeah, we're gonna ban Camille, we're gonna ban your Rise or stuff. So we're not gonna find ourselves in that situation. They would need to give up resources to an extent, you know, other picks that they would want to ban, but then at the same time they go like, oh well, Caps is gonna be fine anyway, bot lane is gonna be fine anyway, so what do we care, right? So I think that's basically going to be their mentality. And I wonder whether a team will be able to pressure them in that way.
Shout out to Kingzone.
Shout out to Kingzone.
Yeah, carry versus carry.
Yeah, I don't know if you could ban out Khan. I'm just saying. Like, there's always that Chase lurking in the background. Like, but yeah, no, that's interesting. I think you're right. You know, just from the playoff games that I saw, Fnatic did look weak towards the top side of the map, and it's not even necessarily that Broxa put like a ton of attention up there. I think he put some attention towards the mid lane in terms of like vision coverage and stuff like that. And with Caps getting ahead so far, that means that you can also counter jungle during that time too. So you kind of get pressure on the entire map. Like if you're able to break open mid lane and get a huge mid lane lead, that means control over everything, right? Like that's why people have said, at least in terms of professional play, like mid lane is the best lane. You know, it's the lane to where you need an actual good player, or else the entire map is going to be, you know, ceded to the other enemy. So
good. All right, so Izento, Team Liquid is going to get crushed at MSI. I'm just calling out here. Do you have any arguments against that?
I got a couple ones. So Team Liquid also 3-0'd their final. They 3-0'd 100 Thieves, and they had some of the best macro that we've ever seen in the NALCS. I would say confidently, actually. In particular to their quarterfinal against Cloud9, they honestly looked like an LCK team, like a decent one. And so they just have this crazy understanding of macro currently that is kind of unparalleled in the NALCS. And that's not to say that NA has good macro by any means. They themselves just have good macro in comparison. And then you also have Doublelift. I mean, he has really picked it up towards the end of the season and going something like there was a stat on Reddit. It was like 45 KDA in the last 12 games.
That's okay.
And
it's not 89 KDA on Tristana, just saying.
You know, probably already says that NA greater than EU. I mean, since Reckless, there was also a Reddit post that said he went 30 KDA. So, you know, he's
because we have obviously the better bot lanes in EU. You know, it's harder.
I mean, considering the garbage EU ADCs, I don't know about that. It's just Sven's over here now. Like,
yeah, we don't need Sven. What did he do on TSM? Nothing. Trash
TSM.
It's so fun watching those NA and EU argue. So adorable.
Just sitting there, oh yeah, we're gonna win anyway. We're gonna win every world, every MSI. You know,
they're adorable.
It's all about the breadcrumbs. You know?
Exactly.
It's all about whatever you can get.
It's all about who can get semi-finals. That's all that matters.
Exactly.
But now in the past, Team Liquid, they looked really good in the beginning of the split, you know, picking up a win against TSM, who, you know, which everyone thought were going to be like this crazy powerhouse, right? Turns out, of course, not. But then everything just started to go downhill from there. And so this was kind of attributed to Team Liquid not knowing how to play towards top lane. And whenever the top lane carries were a legit threat due to the meta, they would just kind of sink down. And one of the big specific problems that Team Liquid had was that Impact didn't really know how to play GP. The games that we actually saw him on GP weren't actually that great. And this was kind of for the entirety of the split. Aside from, like, there were rumors going around where he could play the champion well in scrims during playoffs, but essentially during the entire split, it kind of fucked them in draft quite a bit, especially facing against Echo Fox, who with Huni, he was really good on GP, and that allowed Echo Fox to kind of boost their win rate because he was just so ridiculous on the champion.
Just in general, by the way, Huni's just in general freaking beats. You know,
that's true.
EU talent, of course. Fnatic talent, of course. You know?
And that's kind of the moment where, like, the sword beats the shield. You know,
right?
So, but then the meta changed back towards tank tops, and TL suddenly looked far better. And you know, if you just connect the dots, it's pretty simple to see that the tank meta was largely a part in Team Liquid's, you know, resurrection. And so in reality, it was more than that, though, you know, given how bad the bot lane was as well, too, for the majority of the split. Doublelift didn't look that great. And actually, even Cody Sun looked better than him. So, you know, that kind of says a lot as to how far Doublelift, his level has, you know, sunken for the beginning of the split. But as far as how to beat Team Liquid, I think MSI, they have good top laners, and specifically better top laners for micro-oriented play. And Impact can get like such an advantage because he has a very strong defensive style, but like no one necessarily has a strong offensive style in NA besides, I would say, Flame and Huni. So those are really the only two people that he has to worry about that are like particularly beasts when it comes to offensive style, and to some extent someday towards the latter half of the split. But TL's macro also is pretty good, but it's not incredible. You know, like I was saying, it's like a middle tier LCK team at this point. And TL seemed like pretty desynced at times with Xmithy and what he can do around the map, such as like invades or getting vision information. So that's probably one of the larger deficient roles that the other teams can take advantage of, particularly. So Yeah, I think Xmithy, while he does look good, he is also one of the more predictable junglers as well too. You can kind of predict his routes. You know where he's going, and you know he's usually going to make an intelligent play, but he's never going to do something that's risky. And that goes into like the whole ideology of, well, yeah, if you play risky, then it can backfire. But the thing is, you have to change up your style on occasion so you're not so predictable, right? So Xmithy kind of lacks that, I would say. And then there is, of course, TL. They play well front to back for team fights. They're pretty good team fight team. I don't even think as strong as 100 Thieves, honestly. But if you can disrupt this, if you can disrupt their front to back, then you can easily beat them if you have a strong sense of macro as well too. And so they have heavy like tank presence in the front line, and then Doublelift plays mid to back line because, you know, he's such an aggressive ADC. He sometimes does get in the middle of things. And then you have Pobelter who basically is in the back line outputting DPS through hyper carry mids such as Cassiopeia or Azir or Ryze. So those are the strengths in terms of Team Liquid's team fight capabilities. But if you were able to disrupt that with, say, a flank or something and just kind of throw chaos into the team fight, then that's your best chance to beat Team Liquid. And that could even be said maybe with a Olaf pick if it's going to still be meta at MSI. And then if the meta switches to jungle carries, I don't think this team can function.
Okay. Oh boy.
I don't think that Xmithy looks that great on carry junglers. We haven't seen it in a while, but I just think the whole team dynamic with Team Liquid, you know, playing the heavy tank front line doesn't work well with the, you know, jungle style that he already has developed for himself. So
what I've seen from Team Liquid and what you've been describing is that they're really good also at team fighting, essentially, that they have a very good macro understanding, and I would assume decent objective control. But the question I have is where or like how do they get there? Because if you look at the 100 Thieves series, for example, it always felt like they had not necessarily them making amazing early game plays to get an advantage and then, you know, snowball from there. But usually 100 Thieves, you know, Meteors, doing some shit he's not supposed to do. And then Fnatic, Team Liquid going like, oh yeah, by the way, this is over. Nice. Thank you for throwing. GG, next game. So
okay. So there was, I believe it was game 2. The entire 100 Thieves invades the jungle, and this is at, you know, 1 minute 30 seconds. Like, it's a level 1 invade, and so they spend an enormous amount of time. They spend like a minute and a half or something, or 2 minutes just straight up next to Team Liquid's red buff, and they like try and get the red buff, but Ryu gets chunked out when he goes to travel back towards mid lane, and so this completely shuts down the fight. Pobelter roams down, and they have to get out because they're all already somewhat chunked. So basically Meteos has to go back into his jungle 3/4 health while Xmithy is already doing his red buff.
Yeah.
And right there the game's lost. Like,
right. So in terms of general gameplay, because we can't really use that as a consistent example, what have been examples of them actually playing the game well and then getting ahead and then getting the late game advantage? Have they even gotten like early game kills and like you know, first bloods consistently, etc.?
So in the beginning of the split, Pobelter actually looked incredibly good. He actually had this carry style about him, and maybe that was specifically because Doublelift just wasn't carrying his own weight, so Pobelter like had to do this extra duty or whatnot. And Xmithy had pretty good jungle pressure towards mid as well too, to help like facilitate this whole dynamic. So you can maybe look for Pobelter to start doing this style again, but how Team Liquid get their advantages is simply by Impact absorbing pressure and being better than the enemy top laner. Like that's basically it. And during that time, that's when Doublelift and Olay in the bot lane, they suddenly get an advantage because they also have jungle pressure towards bottom side. So Impact has often been left alone on an island. Like it's like he's a better version of Dyrus. Like
he's the version of Dyrus that doesn't die.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets left alone up there, yet he doesn't die. So they're able to get advantages, on the other side of the map, and that's how Team Liquid wins. And that's been their recipe for success for, the latter half of the split. So it's not necessarily that Team Liquid get a early lead. It's that they do kind of micro advantages.
They allocate resources.
Yeah, exactly. And they're really good at knowing how to do that, especially Xmithy. He's good at knowing where to be on the map and to kind of calculate exactly how to be. And Xmithy and Meteos, they're like similar junglers in a sense. They're very calculative and they kind of know where to be on the map. But it's just a difference of pressure and how Team Liquid deal with their pressure in the top lane versus 100 Thieves, for instance. So
Ashley, do you have any questions about Team Liquid performing?
So it sounds like, okay, from my perspective and based on what your description, Team Liquid does seem to be sharing some similarities with Fnatic in terms of the playstyle. Both mid, top are extremely good at absorbing pressure. Jungle is in a very good state to assist that, and we are usually looking for Doublelift to get fed to a point that he can safely deal damage to the enemy team from the backline. So my question with Team Liquid again would be, how well do they fare when the lanes break and you apply enough pressure to all the lanes in the early part of the game? Exactly. How do they fare with it?
See, and that's the thing. It's been sort of this weird balancing act of to where, okay, pressure top side, now suddenly we have an advantage bot side, and pressure, bot side, we have an advantage top side. But when you start to have better players, the balance breaks. The scale just completely breaks. Now, the thing is, I haven't seen Pobelter necessarily collapse that hard. So you still have this hyper scaling mid laner that's able to do things towards the later parts of the game. So it's not necessarily that Team Liquid rely on Doublelift for like this crazy amount of damage late game. It's more so Pobelter being like the heavy reliant upon that. But when you go against a team like, say, Kingzone, it's to the point to where Khan knows how to apply enough pressure without losing anything. And same with Prey and Gorilla. They know how to play extremely safe. So as far as that matchup is concerned, I don't think there's any way for Team Liquid to win. Like, I don't see a realistic way, and especially with Peanut in the jungle, I just don't see a way. So, but in terms of them facing against Fnatic, it's going to be interesting because I think it's largely going to come down to macro and Impact's better understanding of macro than Bwipo's, because he far exceeds Bwipo's knowledge in macro, at least from what I've seen from, you know, the small amount of games of Bwipo playing in the playoffs. So
I think that's fair, though I will have to say that I think Fnatic is favored in this matchup because of two reasons. And that is, one, they themselves, as Ashley has correctly commented, used to play this kind of style, you know, top absorbing all the pressure, and so is doing amazingly at it, and then knowing where to distribute the resources everywhere else. Now it's kind of changed with Bwipo, even though he still has to absorb the pressure. The focus kind of shifted, but they are 100%. They know 100% how to play this and how to play against it at the same time. So I would assume that they would exactly know how Team Liquid's game plan works and how to counter it, because they themselves have played it so many times. And also, I think Caps will pretty much get the early game break advantage. He will make Pobelter break. That said, though,
I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure, but let me like 80% sure. And also, of course, the bot lane is better. You know, Reckless's interview, very much clear. Uzi is the tier 1 ADC. Then we have the tier 2 ADCs with Prey and a bunch of Chinese ADCs and himself.
Like
and Doublelift was 10th. He was like the best of the tier 3 ADCs. I think. Yeah, so he was basically with the rest of the EU ADC, so, you know, just throwing that out there. Like, same bunch with Cody and stuff.
All I want to see is Doublelift just trash talk Reckless.
Yeah, and then get trashed in the game. I want to see that one. That's funnily enough, that's exactly what Reckless kind of described. You know, Doublelift likes to put himself on a throne, on a pedestal, and he would like to be that guy that pushes him off that throne. So yeah, I'm here for this. I'm here for the trash talk. Luck. I'm here for the trash talk after the game. But let's go over to Ashley and Kingzone, because I'm very, very excited for this team, specifically because of one player that I've also been following for years, and that is Peanut. Now, Peanut has made Worlds Finals twice, didn't make it at the end of the day. He's been with Rocks Tigers, of course, was phenomenal, and then kind of didn't. Then he was with SKT. At first, he was phenomenal. Then he kind of wasn't, and then he was subbed out even at times. And now he's with Kingzone, again on the top of the LCK, but has he gotten consistent? That is my question, because that was his big issue as a player. We all know peak Peanut is amazing, but bottom Peanut is, especially in LCK. Yeah. So what is Peanut's performance over the past split and in playoffs?
So I would definitely say that Peanut has been gaining consistency, and another criticism of Peanut was that he could only play an aggressive champion, such as Nidalee or Olaf, or he used to play a lot of Alice, even though she's not in the meta anymore. Yeah. But I think that Peanut has definitely matured through the course of going through Rocks Tigers and SKT and Longju, which is now Kingzone, and he is able to play tank champions quite consistently. And even with tank champions, Peanut still seems to play them in his style. So rather than staying at so he is like in the polar opposite of Ambition. Ambition is like, you know, play a CC heavy champion and farm very quickly in a way that he can help out the team fights. And Peanut is, okay, no matter what champion I pick, I'll gank and I'll try to be the playmaker that defines the early course of the game. So that's always going to be the way that Peanut plays. But given that he's been doing quite well on tank champions and he's been quite consistent no matter what, like whether the team is losing or winning. So I think, yeah, Peanut has definitely matured as a player and has a bigger champion pool that he's going to be less of a weakest possible link to Kingzone than even earlier of the split.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how have Kingzone been performing overall? Was there any teams that were able to stop them? How was the finals and stuff? What's their weakness? We want to know about the weakness.
I don't know. That's a really interesting question, because if you look at Kingzone's performance in this current split. I think they have 2 losses, but for both of those times, Khan, who is the biggest playmaker of Kingzone, wasn't playing. I believe that for the very big first match of the split, he wasn't able to play because of some controversies. And for the second game, he had to be subbed out after the first game because of some hyperventilation issues, and he had to be sent out to the hospital.
Were the only 2 series that they lost, right?
Exactly.
So it's like there's a blemish on the record, right? It's like, did you truly beat Kingzone?
Yeah. So they dropped a couple of games, but they haven't dropped a series yet, which is quite scary, because in order to discuss how do we beat Kingzone, we probably need some samples on, hey, those were the times they were beaten in a series. But in the current roster, including Khan, do we even have a sample of Kingzone being beaten?
Well, not in a series,
not in this split.
I thought they lost a game against
so series, not a game.
Yeah, they always lose the first game to give their opponents false hope, and then they just reverse sweep, basically. That's mental game.
So talking about that, going back to Kingzone and their chances against Fnatic and Team Liquid, I think
wait, hold on. No, what? Kingzone, they're 16-2 for regular season.
Yeah, but so like both those
games lost 2 series.
Yeah, both those were without Khan.
All right.
So. Yeah. So I think the current meta definitely is quite bot heavy. So the bot in the end, like, is the one that carries and defines the game the most. But given that, so we just both discussed that for Fnatic, the ace is obviously the Reckless. He's the person who carries. And also for Team Liquid, Impact absorbs a lot of pressure at top and distributes that resource down to mid and bot lane, where Doublelift especially is expected to carry. The thing about Kingzone is they are perfectly happy to play that kind of playstyle, as well as go completely distribute all the resource to top and mid and allow Khan or BDD to carry. And they can play very, very versatile, and part of that I attribute to Pre and Gorilla, who are extremely experienced, bot lane, and they've been playing together for quite a while, and they can go entirely aggressive, and we're going to push bot lane really hard and put all the pressure and try to get bot lane first blood tower, or they can, as you've discussed, Izento, they can absorb immense amount of pressure, survive any kind of ganks, or
you can have Peanut go like 7-0 on Olaf and just straight smash kids.
Yeah. Like, smurfing in LCK.
Exactly. And that's another thing I'm going to go back to, because another thing about Kingzone is every single player can carry on their team, but because the bot lane is so versatile, they can enable the entire team to switch into another playstyle really quickly. And that's one of the reasons I think that they haven't lost the series yet is, we lost the first game, we're going to switch to a different playstyle, and we're going to switch up a different ban pick, and we're going to win game 2 and game 3. And that's exactly what happened on Africa versus Kingzone final at LCK Spring Split. They try to play it in a way that, hey, even though we picked Kai'Sa, we're going to use Skarner to try to start an early snowball, but that didn't work out, and the entire team kind of crumbled, especially on the top lane and the mid lane. And they said, okay, so we're going to draft differently. We're going to start drafting more tanks on top lane and use Talia to have more map presence and really enable Prey to carry by giving him Kai'Sa and also support him with Morgana.
And
they changed the playstyle.
The craziest thing I'd ever... Praise Kai'Sa is nuts.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly, yeah. So they tried a different playstyle, and they were able to win game 2 and 3 and 4. And going back, and everyone talks about why didn't Africa ban Kai'Sa? Why didn't Africa ban Kai'Sa on game 2 and 3 and 4? And that's going back to the whole thing about in Kingzone, any single player can carry. And if you looked at what Africa was banning, they were banning out Olaf, and they did not want to give Olaf to Peanut and enable him to be the carry. And same with Nidalee, even though we haven't seen Nidalee that much on the split, they were banning out Nidalee constantly because, okay, again, Peanut has an immense carry potential, so we don't want him to snowball all over the map. And finally, they were banning out Swain. Kuro, I don't think Kuro has played Swain on the split so far, but we've seen BDD.
Yeah, but he's the OP pick, right?
Yeah, but we've seen BDD on Swain now and then, and he wreaked havoc across the entire game. And they were like, okay, so we're gonna reduce the carry potential of Peanut and BDD. And because of that, they had to open up Kai'Sa. So how do you ban a team out when every single player on their team has a potential to carry?
I'm not a coach.
I think I have a strategy. You go into the game and you open mid. That's I think that's a good strategy.
You just play on the ARAM map and hopefully you have better team fight.
Yeah. You have luck with your rerolls. You get the Sona and you get the Karthus, and then you try.
I can somehow see Kingzone still.
Yeah,
that would be the most awful experience. Just like
that said, I wholeheartedly agree that, you know, Khan and Peanut and Prime Gorilla are completely insane. Like, those guys are, I consider them all to be the best in their respective role, in honesty. Especially, like, if you consider, well, I mean, Reckless said that Uzi is the better ADC than Prey, or like that Prey is second best only, but together as a bot lane, they are absolutely bonkers. That said, what about BDD? Because, like, I feel like there's a slight chance that, you know, the likes of Caps, or even, you know, Pobelter, if he has a really, really good day, somehow manage to get an edge and then just try to force it through the mid lane, maybe try to, like, grab a Drake off it and then slowly but steadily break into the base. Is that a thing, maybe?
I don't know. Like,
no? All hope lost?
So,
this is well wishing.
BDD has been, like, I do believe he ended up taking the split MVP in LCK. He's going in LCK, which is like, you know how EU is the home to all the mid laners, but, you know, LCK, you know, we have Kuro, who's, I think, is peaking in his career. We have Baker, we have Yuka, who's like the super rookie, and among all those mid laners, BDD has been like peaking in his KDA, and he took the split MVP. So I would actually say BDD is one of the most consistent, if not most versatile, one of the most consistent players in Kingzone. I don't know, but I might be biased, but like taking the split MVP in LCK is not a light feat.
So you don't have a how to beat Kingzone section.
I don't know, because before we had this podcast, before we started this podcast, Darius asked me, hey, how would you try to beat Kingzone? And it's really difficult to answer that, because if you ask me the question for 2017 Longzhu Gaming, I would have had a few answers to that. And Samsung Galaxy also had an answer to that, and that's why I believe they were able to beat Longzhu in 3-0. And two things they did was, number one, one of the biggest things they did for that game was they forced Khan on tanks. And at that time, Longzhu could play only one playstyle, which was, hey, we're going to use jungle to really, really open up and enable top and mid. When Khan was forced to play on tank, he suddenly couldn't carry anymore, and it looked like that Kingzone wasn't able to initiate the snowball that iteration of Longzhu Gaming would really rely on, and they crumbled. And another thing that we have noticed was Longzhu Gaming at the time was pretty new. So Cuz was a Royal Rotor, he was a rookie. Both Khan and BDD didn't have that much experience on world stages, and we could almost see that they were tilting under the pressure. Oh, we were the undefeatable team and we suddenly lost the set, and that seemed to be like getting into the mentality. But coming into this season, Khan can now play tanks. In the finals, I believe that he played Cho'Gath 3 times. And also because they have much more international stage experiences, they are able to handle pressure much better. So the both reasons for, okay, my personal reasons for Longzhu Gaming going 3-0 against Samsung Galaxy has been fixed. So at this point, I don't know, you guys tell me.
What
how
is there
would
to
you
do?
Kingzone?
You know, I think the only realistic way that you beat Kingzone, and this is like a super long shot, but it's to like win lane, win game. I think that's the only realistic way to do that. Now,
But not only one lane, but multiple lanes, probably.
Yeah, so essentially, you have to be a super team. Essentially, you have to be a KT
Paid by
roster.
Steve. No.
Oh.
KT Rolster. Oh boy.
Well, yeah. So I mean, realistically, I think that was the best team to try and take down Kingzone. It was just like win lane, get Kingzone super tilted, you know, and just try and snowball from there, and try and make it to where there is no late game, because they're most likely going to beat you in team fight phase, because you as KT Rolster suck in team fights. So I mean, that seems to be the best bet, but the thing about that is I don't think there's a team at MSI that's able to really do that. Now, the only chance that I could see is, Uzi opening up the bot lane, because that seems like a lane to where actually Uzi might be able to get an advantage in, just because he's so ridiculous in lane, right? And with Kingzone and their bot lane playing so defensively for the most part, they're willing to kind of give up a lot in order to play defensively towards that side. So if Uzi can kind of take advantage of this, then maybe RNG like take a game off of them. Maybe win the series. I don't know, but
then again, like Kingzone has such a like every single member of Kingzone has quite a large champ pool. So if Kingzone was facing RNG, they will probably draft in a way that could play around Uzi's.
Look, you're just breaking all my dreams, all right? What do you want?
Let a man dream. Yeah.
So, and going back to the Reckless and how Reckless has rated Uzi as the number 1 ADC in the world at the moment, I'm gonna fall back to another interview of Reckless, which I translated, is that Reckless appreciated being compared to Teddy, but wanted to become more like Prey. And Teddy, who might be one of the greatest ADCs in LCK at the moment, has a relatively similar role in his team compared to Uzi. He is the ADC carrier of Xenair. He's always the one who carries, is so consistent, plays Caitlyn and other super hyper late game carries amazingly. But Reckless wanted to become more like Prey, who may not be Uzi, but he is the more versatile one. He can play the super hard late game carries as well as utility champions such as Israel, Ashe, Sivir, and that opens up the entire team to flex their playstyle.
Which is exactly what he's been doing. You know, he played both Trist and Sivir in the finals against G2, but we've seen him on the Ezreal. You know, we've seen teams trying to ban out his champion pool, but he's able to pick anything essentially, and he's very much versatile, which is a good thing, because Reckless last year, and I'm saying this to catch up with the point earlier that I say that he's now at his peak of his performance. Previous iterations of Reckless were amazing at one thing, and that was usually AD Cannon. And maybe one or two other champions. He always was decent at Sivir, but like that was it. You ban out the AD Cannon, or you shut it down, and he has a problem. Now it's like the complete switch. Yeah.
So I like the comparison to Teddy, because the only time that I ever hear Teddy is from Emily Rand, when she's just like, this ADC is one of the best in the world. He's so consistent. He's so good. And I'm just like, wait, who does that guy play for? Oh, Jin Air, the team that I don't watch because I'm NA. Like, I don't give a shit about Jin Air. But I mean, aside from that, though, that's a pretty good comparison, right? It's Teddy is like this consistent guy, you know, and then you have Prey, who's very versatile, and then you have Uzi, who is just fucking stomp you in lane, yeah, and just the hyper carry. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. But can someone else in RNG step up as the carry?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's though, like we talked about the team fights of Kingzone being really good, but usually them getting the early game pressure and then like kind of or like even taking it in, but knowing how to play the macro on the map so well that they don't have a problem with it. That said, though, from the playoffs games of RNG and IG, for example, that series, but also the other playoff games of LPL that I watched, basically I have the feeling that LPL teams decide to team fight at a much earlier point than other teams in other regions. Like, they just go ham at 15 minutes. They don't care about 30-minute team fights or 40-minute team fights. They go ham at 15 minutes. They go ham at 1 minute. But so I think that might be a way to crack the case, because as you've said, Kingzone are also confident in just taking a step back, absorbing some of the pressure, but knowing, okay, our team comp will scale, will Gucci. But Uzi, every little bit, every 1 minion CS you give him extra, every one little piece of poke that you give him, he's able to capitalize on it more than any other player, in my opinion. And then you also have the insane, like, just insanely early team fighting, and I think that might be disruptive enough to beat the likes of Kingzone.
So I am excited. Admittedly, I didn't finish the RNG versus IG series.
Oh, you missed out.
But it's fucking LPL, so I don't give a shit about China. But I just got a ton of hate right now.
Yeah, we're gonna clip this and we're gonna post it on Twitter right after RNG stomps Team Liquid. That's gonna be good.
Post it on Weibo.
Oh yeah.
But I was super impressed by MLXG's like crazy aggression. It was nuts. In their game 2, MLXG, he 3 buffs the Ning, and just gets super far ahead of him and is just able to snowball off of that. And then I think it was in the first game, he ganks bot at level 2, like right after red buff. He just goes straight to bot, and I'm just like, who does that anymore? Like, I haven't even seen that in solo queue games. Like,
I've seen Peanut do that once or twice, but yeah.
Even Peanut is known for his insane aggression, so that's pretty fitting, I would say.
But yeah, I think RNG match up incredibly well against Kingzone. I think it's honestly the only chance that Kingzone lose. So I guess I am an LPL fan.
If it comes to that point, we're all going to be LPL fans, because, sorry to say, but the same region winning over and over, it does get a bit boring.
I think rational thing that's going to happen, I say rational and I'll come back to that. I think the rational things that's going to happen between Kingzone versus RNG is they will try to give the bot a lot of resource in order to like put Uzi on a pedestal, but I think that Prey and Gorilla would be smart enough, and also they'll try to ban peg around Prey and Gorilla in a way that they can absorb the pressure, and meanwhile that's gonna open up top and mid to completely like roll over Khan and be like, if not enough resources like given to defend that, Khan and BDD is going to completely roll over the enemy flag. So I think the snowball's going to start rolling that way. And talking about early game domination, Kingzone is perfectly happy to play the early game style. I believe that for the most part of the spring split, Kingzone had the fastest game for all of the LCK. So they are able to play the early aggression, skirmishes, snowball fast and never look back kind of play style. But then again, that is the rational thing to predict. And when we talk about LPL, one of the things I really respect about that is like, it's like watching a very elaborate solo queue, so to speak, of 5 friends playing together. Yeah. Like, yeah. And when we talk about Kingzone, like you have to do something extraordinary, almost crazy to topple them over. And I think if any other region, LPL is going to be the one to try that. Yeah. So I talked about what's the rational thing's going to be do, but I don't know what LPL's going to pull out of their hats. See, so if any...
I don't know, as a sidebar, talking about the LPL style and how they differentiate from LCK and how they had just like such early aggression, I respect that so much from LPL because they've kind of realized they're the only part of the world that has realized that they can never beat LCK teams at their own style, you know, which LCK teams, they kind of dictate the global meta anyways. So everyone's trying to emulate Kingzone. Everyone's trying to be, you know, SKT, well, former SKT, and KSV or Samsung Galaxy, right? Everyone's trying to be those teams that have crisp macro, you know, don't do any early aggression. You have the late game. You're superior at macro. You're superior at objective control and vision control around objectives. Like you got the mid and the late game, so don't worry about it. And LPL is just like, fuck that, dude. Like, roll the dice. Early game, let's go, baby. Like, so it's like a solo queue game. Like you're right. Like there's these risky plays, but the insane thing about them is they're also these very skilled players that are used to that style too, right? So they're used to being ahead of these other weaker teams by simply mechanical prowess. And that's what kind of heavily differentiates the LPL, which is also my theory on why Uzi is so fucking good, is because they all go for these plays constantly. And when you have this constant practice with these, you know, heavily, you know, micro intensive plays, then suddenly you're a micro god. You know, you are able to handle yourself within lane phase, and you're able to kind of stomp the lane phase. But yeah, I think I don't know, I just respect LPL's different play style. I think it's a new flavor. I think it's healthy and good.
I'm very excited for that matchup specifically as well. And I think I believe it was Prey, or it might have been Gorilla, but they mentioned in an interview, I think you might have translated it as well, Ashley, where they said that specifically Kingzone, when they don't scrim LCK teams, of course they scrim the LPL teams in RNG and EDG specifically, and that he thought that realistically they actually have a good shot at beating Kingzone. They're actually a bit worried about, you know, playing against the likes of RNG and stuff. So I'm very, very much excited about that for sure. As for, and I think both of you are very much right when saying, if you are going to go up against Kingzone, try to come up with something new. And for me personally, speaking as the EU representative, I very much hope that Fnatic will pull out something like this, kind of like Misfits did against SKT. We just go like, oh yeah, Leona Ignite. Oh yeah, let's pick the Blitzcrank. And that worked. That worked. And when they weren't able to do that all of a sudden, when those picks were banned out, or when the team decided not to play it anymore, or when the team decided to pick freaking Yasuo because fucking hell. Delete Yasuo as a champion. But but when plus one karma, when that didn't work out anymore, Misfits lost the series kind of. So that's essentially, in my opinion as well, how to beat Korean teams at the end of the day, or like have a realistic shot. That said, I also think there's a slight potential advantage with the best of one group stage. Maybe there can be like some ways to, you know, because Kingzone realistically always lose the first game of their series and then sweep. So if the first game of the series is the only game of the series, therefore,
Don't the 4 top regions always play at least BO3?
No, in group stage,
isn't that how it
we're, yeah,
in group stage, they don't.
AU, unless you're
Okay.
counting us as wildcard regions now. Like,
Okay.
Yeah, no, but like group stage, all
like-
of the 4 major regions will have to participate in that, and of course EU and NA play best of ones in the regular split.
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
So
Like going back.
No, Ashley,
Like,
Ashley,
do you want to go first?
yeah,
Ashley
yeah,
was first.
go ahead, Ashley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like another like going back to how Izento was like the way to beat Kingzone might be like defeat them in the early lane phase. And another thing about LPL is, yeah, I agree, Darius, that they're mechanically extremely strong players. Probably a bit like LPL as a region has always traditionally been a bit weaker on the rotations and macro, but stronger as individuals. So going back to Igento's point about the best way to, best way to beat Kingzone would be to start beating them in lanes. I think that LPL teams are most likely to achieve that. I'm not saying they're likely to achieve that. They're more likely to achieve that compared to EU and NA. So given that, I think that's another possible scenario that one of the LPL teams suddenly say, okay, we're going to pop and go at least toe-to-toe with Kingzone in the lane.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I think we've talked quite a lot about why Kingzone will inevitably win MSI, or most likely at least, unless RNG really, really pops off, or they don't ban Tristana against Reckless. Maybe.
Hype
legit.
Hype dreams.
Hype dreams. If there's a small hope that Kingzone just 3 games in a row forget that Tristana exists as a champion, and then that's maybe a way. But other than that, realistically, Kingzone are the clear favorites. I think everyone can agree with that one. So let's just wrap it up with some hot takes about the tournament. Hot predictions. So my prediction will be that NA fans can rejoice, because for the first time in they will get a feeling that they're not used to, and that is getting out of groups at an international tournament. So I definitely think Team Liquid, even though they lack the special sauce, they are consistent and they are good, and they're good enough to beat the play-in teams that will get into the groups and make it out of groups, at least make it into quarters or semis. That said, after that, I think realistically it will be. I can see, a region like Vietnam maybe taking them in quarterfinals and beating them. Maybe they'll even make semis. That would be an unheard of scenario for NA fans, of course.
Definitely.
And I think realistically, speaking from an EU perspective, the best we can hope for is still finals. If we can dodge Kingzone until then, I think Fnatic could stand a chance against the Chinese representative. I definitely think that Fnatic would 100% beat Liquid in best of 5. If that's gonna happen, Fnatic will win. And I'm saying this with the EU bias, but I'm also saying this as a realistic point of view. Other than that,
what's the score?
What's the score?
Team Liquid versus Fnatic.
Team Liquid versus Fnatic, best of 5. Let's call it the semifinals. Because somehow we managed to get that, and like RNG versus Kingzone is the other semifinals.
Yeah.
I would say it would be a 3-1. I definitely think that there will be a game where Impact is able to get all the pressure needed, and Pobelta has a good game. That happens, but in general, I think it's going to be a 3-1, pretty clear, decisive series. Yeah, definitely. And that's pretty much it for my predictions. And I also think that if we see a best of 5 RNG, specifically not EDG RNG versus Kingzone, it will go to 5 games. Those are my hot takes. Izento, what about you?
So like I said before, NA greater than EU. you said 3-1 Fnatic. I want to say 3-0 Team Liquid. I just think, honestly,
the disrespect.
Doublelift, he's a better ADC than Reckless. He obviously has a better KDA, so that means that is true.
In a worse league, of course.
And I think they would just be able to take apart the top side of the map. I think Bwipo isn't as good as he say he is. You know, even if he thinks that he's as good as Soaz, not true. Oh, you think you can stand toe to toe with Impact? Not true. Yeah, oh, Caps, you think you could just dominate the mid lane without mid lane vision? Not true. So, yeah, I think it would be clean 3-0. And really, that's only if Team Liquid meet up against Fnatic, which, you know, is a pretty big doubt. But that's still my big take, is that if NA meets EU, it's going to be a stomp. It's going to be really bad. I think Team Liquid's macro is way cleaner, and I think that's how they'll win all 3 games clearly.
Speaking like a true deluded TSM fan, Ashley, what about you? What's your hot take for the tournament?
No, if I talk about Kingzone, it's not going to be a hot take anymore. It's going to be like a really rational prediction. Like Fnatic versus Team Liquid, I actually think Fnatic's going to win there 3-1.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's go.
Oh, you know what? I'll just wait until I can retweet this part. Don't worry.
Dude, Reckless is challenger in Korean solo queue after a few days. Like, exactly, I mean, come on.
Yeah, with duo queue, with Core JJ.
NA talent.
Yeah, that's why he got carried.
I think, like, you know, Fnatic and Team Liquid is obviously like different teams, but Fnatic and Team Liquid at their current iteration is fundamentally ADC like focused playstyle. They have the ADC focused team with like slightly passive top. Capson, Pobelto is slightly different. Bot lane also plays somewhat similarly. So I think in that matchup, Fnatic, given their similar playstyle, is going to take the upper hand, because I do think that Reckless, in a lot of different situations, is better ADC than Doublelift, but we'll see.
I'm happy. I'm already very happy about this.
No, it's fine. I'll just get that fat karma. It's cool.
Yeah, I think Kingzone's gonna take it. Is it a bit hot take at this point? Maybe we'll see someone open Peanuts, Nidalee, or Olaf, and he's gonna go completely ham and go 7-1. That could be another hot take. I'll be interested to see them not betting.
Right,
yeah.
That's like that's like a Tabasco hot. Like it's kind of hot, but not really.
Yeah, but it's like you expect something hot from someone who goes to a Chili's restaurant every day. It's like, yeah.
Like, I don't know. Kingzone's already pretty hot, so how are you gonna up it up from there? I don't know how to.
I mean, you can just go, oh yeah, if we meet RNG, we're gonna 3-0 them, and we're gonna 3-0 every other team, for example.
Maybe I'm just like a really rational person. Like if it's gonna be RNG versus Kingzone, I can definitely see RNG taking a 1 game and Kingzone like changing this playstyle slightly to come back to 3-1. But yeah, I think Kingzone's gonna take it. That's not a hot take. That's pretty much a given fact. EU winning against NA, I like 3-1 or 3-0. I think that could be my hot take. But
wait.
I'll take it.
So maybe your hot take could be EDG winning?
No,
I mean, it hasn't happened.
I can't do that. I don't know. Maybe Peanut playing Lee Sin, but good luck to both of you. Yeah, but good luck to both of you.
The LPL finals hasn't happened yet, so maybe EDG could,
Maybe. I mean, the Uzi curse is real, so maybe that will happen. Although I'm gonna say this. Okay, speaking of hot takes and speaking of predictions, I'm just gonna say it. RNG are gonna win. Uzi's gonna break his curse, because this year, 2018, is the year that all the curses, all the series have broken. G2 getting dethroned, SKT all of a sudden not being strong enough anymore, TSM not making finals for the very first time ever, Team Liquid being the 4th team to ever win NALCS, all the memes coming true, all the curses being broken.
The year of the dog, man.
The year of the dog, the year that maybe Korea won't win Worlds. No, that's just unrealistic. That's never gonna happen.
But have you seen Kanon Nasus?
Oh, I don't want to remember that.
I don't
Neither
know.
does SOAS. Like,
Literally
That's the
got
ultimate-
dogged champion.
That's the ultimate BM.
Yeah.
Going Nasus against SOAS, who has Nasus Flare on Reddit,
Yep.
and just completely crushing him and letting the Rip Herald dance. That's like the ultimate BM.
Ultimate
So-
BM.
I loved it. That was one of my favorite games of like all time. To be honest,
Wasn't one of my favorite games whatsoever.
Wasn't it?
Can we hear some
Yeah.
more predictions though from you guys? RNG or EDG? What's your take? Izento, give me a name.
I'm just gonna say RNG. Like, I haven't actually watched any EDG games, I think, this season. So I mean, Uzi's a god. Like, that's about it. Like, I don't have like
MLXG
an
is pretty
analytical standpoint on this. Yeah,
Yeah.
MLXG is actually looked pretty good against IG. So
Ashley,
that's what I'm gonna go off of.
Give me a name.
Based on RNG's performance, yeah, I think it's gonna be RNG. 3-1, 3-2, but I think it's gonna be RNG.
Frostgorn is gonna
another
scream
Chris
at us. People that don't watch LPL are talking about LPL and making LPL predictions. That's how it goes. Maybe by the
I
next
watched it.
time. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I watched I watched the playoff games, so I
I
guess
don't watch
that
a
it
damn
counts.
thing.
All right. I mean, yeah, we had a previous iteration of this where we predicted the LCK Challenger series where we did like a little test run, and I just went with that Kongdu would get relegated because they have the worst logo, because that's always a good strategy to use. And in this case, again, RNG have the better logo than EDG, therefore RNG are gonna win 100%. It always works.
I'm
It always works, people.
I'm glad it's the logo and not the name, because if it was a name, Kingzone Dragon X.
Kingzone
Would it be
Dragon
doing so
X,
well?
man, that
That's a
sounds
good
like
point. That
something.
name is so fucking bad.
That sounds like
Jeez.
something I would have made up at 13 years old and would have really thought, oh, that's really cool, dude. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm gonna use that. Funnily enough, LS really liked it, but you know, LS is in his own little world.
He's got
So-
an acquired taste.
Yeah, he's got an acquired taste for sure with his Annie. Anyway, I think this pretty much wraps it up very nicely. Is there anything you guys want to say to the fans or to the viewers? Izento, your take now.
I don't know. Peace. NA greater than EU. 3-0. Maybe make it out of group. All right, Darius is kind of right on that. Like, maybe we make it out of groups. I don't know.
What about you, Ashley? Anything you would like to say to the
no,
viewers?
You go first, actually, because I think it's really appropriate for Kingzone representative to go last.
Okay, yeah, the best for last. I see how it is. Well, I would like to thank all of you very much for watching. EU is of course going to be stomping NA, and I'm very much excited about that. Of course, NA will then, I don't know, get Rift Rivals and then jerk off on that, even though they suck at MSI, they suck at Worlds. But hey, we
will
got
talk
Rift
shit about
Rivals,
that.
guys. We got Rift Rivals. So yeah, very much excited for Reckless to dethrone Double Lift. Ashley, take it away.
Yeah. Really good to have this conversation with you guys. Really happy to learn more about EU and NA, and kind of cute, really entertaining.
Like school children having fights.
For EU versus NA, good luck avoiding Kingzone, because that's like a prerequisite, right?
Yep.
Please.
EU has a good history of dodging the LCK teams, so I'm hoping on that. I'm banking on that.
That's a prerequisite.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any more comments or feedback to make, we're of course very much appreciating all the comments. Make sure to follow Izento and Ashley on Twitter, of course. The links will be everywhere shown, of course. And yeah, any feedback, any questions, very much appreciated. Any suggestions for future episodes, maybe talking about infrastructure or mentality or the way that players are treated. We're open to everything. This is of course the first episode of League Around the World. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Peace.
Hey everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller, and I hope you just enjoyed that video. This is a generic end card, of course, so make sure to click here for a different interview, or here for a different interview, or about here to subscribe to the Shotcaller. We very much appreciate your support, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.